There is a moment between sleep and wakefulness, a thin, elusive veil where the impossible doesn't seem so impossible anymore. It's where logic quiets down, and something deeper whispers in the background. For some, it's just dreams. For others, it's something more, something real, something miraculous. My name is Lila. I'm not a mystic, not a psychic, and certainly not someone who ever believed in the supernatural. I'm a data analyst. For God's sake, numbers, patterns, logic, those were my gospel. I believed only in what could be explained, measurable, repeatable, until it happened. It started with a dream. Not just any dream. It felt vivid, too vivid. In the dream, I was standing at the foot of an old bridge. The sky was dim, painted in twilight hues. A woman stood across from me, cloaked in white, her face both unfamiliar and deeply known. She didn't speak, but her eyes held a sorrow I couldn't understand. Then, she raised her hand and pointed behind me. I turned, but woke up before I could see what was there. Odd, I thought, just a dream. But the next night, I had the same dream. And then the next. By the fourth night, I started writing it down. The woman's face, the old bridge, the silence, the pointing, always the same. My logical brain told me it was stress. My mother's voice in my head said, dreams can be messages. Lila, I rolled my eyes, just like I always had. But something was off. The dream began seeping into my waking hours. I started noticing strange things, like the bridge from my dreams, except in real life. I passed it one morning on my usual commute, tucked away behind the city train station. I had never noticed it before. I stopped, stood in front of it, and suddenly, I felt her, not just remembered her, but felt her, like she was standing just beyond the mist. That was the beginning of a journey I didn't ask for, but maybe one I needed. A journey that would make me question everything I believed. And that journey, it didn't just change me, it saved me. Because sometimes, miracles don't look like divine intervention. Sometimes, they look like coincidence, until you look closer. The bridge had become an obsession. I couldn't get it out of my head, the old, weathered structure that had appeared out of nowhere on my daily commute. I had driven past it countless times, never once noticing it, until that fateful morning when it stood there, like an ancient sentinel waiting for me. Now, it felt as though it had always been there, as though I had been drawn to it without knowing why. I parked my car near the edge of the road and got out, staring at the bridge with a mix of unease and curiosity. It looked older than I had remembered, broken stones, rusted metal railings, and overgrown vines creeping up the supports. The air around it was thick with silence, the kind of silence that wasn't just quiet but heavy, pressing in on all sides. The strange thing was, I had no reason to be here. There was no logical explanation for why I had stopped. I wasn't an adventurous person, and I certainly wasn't someone who would spend a morning standing in front of an abandoned bridge. But there I was, unable to tear my gaze away. I stepped closer, cautiously, as if the bridge itself might speak. My heart pounded in my chest, and a strange chill ran down my spine. As I stood there, the world around me seemed to blur. The traffic sounds faded into the background. The sky dimmed, and the usual rush of thoughts in my mind slowed down, leaving only a single thought: I need to cross this bridge. I hesitated, confused. Why was this feeling so strong? Why did it feel as if I were being called to the other side? Before I could question myself further, a breeze stirred the leaves in the trees above me, and the sound of soft whispers filled the air. I froze, looking around, but there was no one in sight. The whispers weren't clear, but they felt familiar. It was as if the air itself was trying to communicate something to me. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. The first step felt oddly heavy, as if the earth itself was pulling me towards the other side. The second step came more easily, followed by a third, until I found myself standing at the edge of the bridge. Below me, a small stream of water flowed gently, its surface glistening in the weak morning light. I stared at the water for a long time, my mind still trying to make sense of what had brought me here. That's when I saw it, something glimmering in the distance. Beyond the bridge, on the far side of the stream. It was faint at first, but as my eyes focused, I could see a figure standing there, barely visible in the mist. The woman from my dreams. She was there, just as she had been in the dream, standing in the same position, cloaked in white. Her back was to me, but I could feel her gaze. My breath caught in my throat as I realized she was the same woman I had seen in every single dream for the past week. I wanted to call out to her, to ask who she was and why she had come into my life. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stood frozen, my legs unable to move as if some invisible force was holding me in place. And then, as if sensing my presence, she turned. Her face was calm, serene even, but there was something in her eyes that made my heart ache. The sorrow there was so deep, it seemed to seep into my bones. She didn't speak, but her eyes conveyed everything I needed to know. You are here for a reason. For a moment, I felt like I was drowning in those eyes, as though the world itself was pulling me into them. I blinked, and in that instant, the woman vanished. I blinked again, and the bridge was empty. The whispers stopped. The air was still. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, unsure of what had just happened. My mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. Was it a trick of the light? Was I just imagining things? It felt so real, too real. I quickly turned and walked back to my car, feeling a mix of confusion and dread wash over me. I didn't understand what I had just experienced, but one thing was certain: it wasn't a dream. It was real, and that scared me more than anything. The next few days passed in a blur. Work, family, friends, it was all a whirlwind of normality, like a mask hiding the truth. But the truth had begun to sink in, creeping into my thoughts like the subtle pressure of a storm cloud gathering on the horizon. I couldn't stop thinking about the bridge, about the woman with sorrowful eyes. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me, something I wasn't ready to face. It had been 3 days since I'd seen her, the woman in the white cloak, the one who seemed to know me, even though I didn't know her. I had tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, that I was overthinking things. But the more I tried to forget, the more vivid the memories became. And then, just when I thought I was starting to move on, it happened again. I was sitting at my desk at work, scrolling through my emails when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother, nothing unusual, just a simple check-in. But when I opened the message, I saw something that stopped me cold. It was a photo. At first, I thought it was just a random picture of a garden, but as I looked closer, I noticed something strange. In the background, partially obscured by a bush, was a figure, a woman, dressed in white. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I stared at the photo. It couldn't be. There was no way. My mother didn't know anything about the woman in my dreams. There was no possible way she could have taken that picture at the same bridge. At the same time, I quickly typed back to my mother, asking her where the photo had been taken. My fingers trembled as I waited for her response, hoping it was just a coincidence. When the reply came, my heart nearly stopped. Just at the park near the old bridge. She wrote, "I thought you might like the view." My mind raced. The park near the old bridge. The same bridge I had seen in my dreams. The same place where I had seen the woman. It was too much of a coincidence. But it didn't stop there. That same evening, when I was walking home from work, I decided to take a different route. The path felt like it was pulling me, as if something was guiding me, leading me to a place I didn't understand. And there it was again, the bridge. But this time, it was different. There was a presence in the air, something thick and heavy. The sky was overcast, casting everything in a dull, grey light. I stood at the edge of the bridge, staring at the water flowing beneath me, when I felt a sudden chill. The wind picked up, swirling around me as if whispering something in my ear, though I couldn't make out the words. And then I saw her. She was standing at the far end of the bridge, just like before. The woman, the same figure, the same white cloak, but this time, something was different. She wasn't just standing there, she was walking toward me. Slowly, purposefully, my heart raced as she drew closer. The sound of her footsteps soft but clear in the otherwise silent air. "Why are you here?" I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was asking her or myself. She didn't answer. Instead, she stopped just a few feet away, her face still hidden beneath the hood of her cloak. I wanted to step forward, to ask her what she wanted, but something held me back. The fear, the uncertainty, it was overwhelming. She reached out, slowly, and I felt a strange pull in my chest, as if something deep within me was responding to her. Her hand hovered in the air for a moment before she lowered it, pointing toward the river below. It was then that I realized something. There was something in the water, something beneath the surface, a faint glow, a shimmer, as if something was waiting to be discovered. I leaned over the edge of the bridge, trying to see better, but as soon as I did, the glow disappeared. The woman stepped back, her eyes still hidden, but I could feel her presence more strongly now. There was a weight to it, a significance I couldn't understand. She turned away from me, slowly walking toward the edge of the bridge. And then, just as she had appeared, she vanished into thin air. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the spot where she had been, trying to process what had just happened. But my mind refused to comprehend it. What was she trying to tell me? What was I supposed to do with this feeling? This knowledge that something was deeply wrong? I turned and left, my footsteps quick and unsteady. But even as I walked away, I could feel the weight of her gaze, as if she was still watching me, waiting for me to understand. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know who she was or why she was in my life. But one thing was clear, I was no longer in control. The threads of fate had begun to weave themselves around me, and there was no escaping what was coming. The days that followed felt like a blur, as if time itself was twisting, warping, and pulling me in directions I didn't fully understand. I found myself haunted by memories that were not mine, faces that didn't belong to anyone I knew, and a sense of urgency that kept me awake at night, staring at the ceiling. It was as if something was calling me, not in words, but in feelings, strong, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. The woman in the white cloak had begun to appear more frequently in my dreams. Always just out of reach, always with that same sorrowful expression. And then, one night, it changed. This time, she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, yet it felt as though it reverberated deep within my chest. "You have to remember," she said, her voice like a distant echo. "You've been here before." The words didn't make sense. How could I have been here before? I had no memory of this place, of her, of any of this. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, my mind scrambling to make sense of what had just happened. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, as though a piece of the puzzle had slipped out of my grasp. It wasn't until I walked past the bridge again that I realized what it was. The familiarity, the feeling of déjà vu, hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been here before, not just in my dreams, but in my life. I stood on the edge of the bridge once more, staring at the water below. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the sound of distant traffic. But it wasn't the scenery that held my attention this time. It was the sensation, the unmistakable feeling that I was on the edge of something monumental, something I couldn't yet see. And then, as if on cue, I heard the whisper again. "You have to remember." The voice wasn't loud, but it was unmistakably clear. It was coming from within me, as if my own thoughts were being echoed back to me by something, or someone else. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and I felt my body tense as I looked around, half expecting to see someone standing behind me. But there was no one. For a moment, I considered walking away, dismissing the whole thing as a strange coincidence. But something kept me rooted to the spot. I couldn't move. It was as though my feet were planted in the earth, as though the very ground beneath me was holding me in place. And then I saw her again. The woman, she stood on the far side of the bridge, just as she had before. But this time, something was different. She wasn't just standing there. She was looking directly at me, her face clear and unmistakable. Her eyes were full of sorrow. But there was something else too, something like recognition, as if she knew me in a way I couldn't understand. I stepped forward, unable to resist the pull. My heart pounded in my chest as I crossed the bridge, moving toward her as if I were being guided by some invisible force. The closer I got, the more intense the feeling became, like a magnetic field pulling me closer and closer. When I was finally just a few feet away, she raised her hand, slowly, deliberately. She pointed toward the water below, and for the first time, I saw it. There, beneath the surface, was a shape, a figure. I couldn't make it out at first, but as my eyes focused, I realized it was a person, a man. He was submerged in the water, his body still, his face turned away from me. The glow that had surrounded him was dim but unmistakable, like a faint pulse of light beneath the surface. The sight of him sent a shock through me, and I gasped, my heart racing. The woman's voice echoed in my mind once more. "You have to remember," she said, as though the words were being spoken through a fog. I leaned over the bridge, my hands gripping the rail tightly as I tried to get a better look at the figure in the water. But as soon as I did, the glow faded, the man vanished. I staggered back, almost losing my balance. My head was spinning, my thoughts a chaotic mess. What was happening? Who was that man? And why did the woman want me to remember him? I turned to face her, but she was gone, as quickly as she had appeared. She had vanished into thin air, leaving me standing alone on the bridge, staring at the water below. I stayed there for what felt like hours, trying to piece together what had just happened. But the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. It didn't make sense, none of it did, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just occurred, that something had been revealed to me. Something I was supposed to understand. But I didn't understand, not yet. I left the bridge that day with more questions than answers. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't walk away from this. Whatever it was, whatever was happening to me, I had to find out what it meant. I had to remember. The events of the past few days had left me feeling disoriented and uncertain. As if I were trapped between two worlds. There was the world I had always known, with its rules and routines, its comfort and safety, and then there was this other world, one that seemed to be pulling me toward it, beckoning me to understand things I couldn't explain. I spent the next few days avoiding the bridge, hoping that if I didn't go there, the strange events would stop. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more persistent the pull became. It was like an invisible force, tugging at me, urging me to return. I couldn't explain it, but I knew one thing, I had to go back. On the evening of the fourth day, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of purple and orange, I found myself driving toward the bridge once again. My heart pounded in my chest, and the air inside the car felt thick with tension. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn around, to walk away, but I couldn't. When I arrived, the bridge stood before me, just as it had before, old, weathered, and shrouded in an almost eerie silence. I parked my car and stepped out, the cool evening air biting at my skin as I walked toward the bridge. My footsteps echoed in the stillness, each one heavier than the last. I stood at the edge of the bridge, staring down at the water below. The faint glow I had seen before was gone, and the surface of the water was calm, almost unnaturally so, but there was something else, something different. I could feel it, the same sense of anticipation that had gripped me before, only this time it was stronger. It was as though something was waiting for me, something that would reveal itself if I was brave enough to look. And then I saw her again, the woman in the white cloak. She stood at the far end of the bridge, her form shrouded in the same soft light that had surrounded her before. But this time, she wasn't alone. There was someone standing next to her, someone I had never seen before. A man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that hung in messy waves around his face. His eyes were fixed on me, intense and piercing, as if he could see straight through me. I felt a jolt of recognition in my chest, but I couldn't place it. Who was he? Why did he look so familiar? As I stood frozen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, the woman in white stepped forward. Her gaze never left me, and I could feel the weight of her stare, as if she was waiting for me to understand something that had eluded me until now. "You've seen him before," she said, her voice carrying over the distance between us. It was the same soft whisper, but now there was a sense of urgency in it. "He's the key." The man didn't speak. He didn't move. He simply stood there, watching me with those piercing eyes, his expression unreadable. I wanted to ask who he was, what he meant, but no words came. Instead, I stepped forward, as if drawn by some force beyond my control. With each step, the world around me seemed to fade, until all I could focus on was the woman and the man standing before me. When I was just a few feet away, the woman spoke again, her voice softer now, almost gentle. "You have to remember," she whispered, "he is the one you've been searching for." Before I could respond, the man stepped forward, his hand outstretched, as if offering it to me. I hesitated, my heart racing in my chest. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, or perhaps the moment I had feared. I didn't know if I was ready for what was about to happen, but I knew that I couldn't turn back now. I reached out and took his hand. The instant our fingers touched, a shock of electricity ran through my body, and everything around me shifted. The bridge, the woman, the man, everything faded away, and I was engulfed in darkness. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. It was as though I had been plunged into a void, where time and space had no meaning. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the darkness lifted. I was standing in a place I didn't recognize, a room, dimly lit, with strange symbols carved into the walls. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the faint sound of chanting echoed in the distance. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the weight of something heavy pressing down on me, as if the very atmosphere was suffocating me. I turned to look at the man who had brought me here, but he was gone. In his place stood the woman, her face solemn and unreadable. "You've come to the threshold," she said, her voice low and reverent. "Now you must make a choice." I looked around, trying to make sense of where I was. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It is the place between worlds," she replied. "The place where the past and the future converge, where the truth is hidden." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The past and the future, the truth. It was all too much, too overwhelming. "What truth?" I whispered, almost afraid to ask. The woman's gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of warmth in her eyes. "The truth of who you really are," she said, "and the choice you must make." The room was silent except for the distant chanting. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if they were alive, watching me. The woman's presence was overwhelming, her gaze piercing through me, and for the first time, I realized that the feeling of being trapped was not just physical but spiritual. I was standing at the edge of something vast and unknown, and I had no idea how far the drop would be. Her words lingered in the air, the weight of them pressing down on my chest. "The truth of who you really are, and the choice you must make." The way she spoke, it was as though she wasn't just offering me a choice but a burden, a responsibility that I had never asked for. I took a step back, trying to clear my head. "What do you mean? What choice? Who am I really?" Her expression softened, the severity of her gaze replaced by something more empathetic, almost sorrowful. She stepped closer, her movement fluid and graceful, and for a moment, I felt as though I were witnessing a memory from another life. Her presence felt so familiar, as though I had known her forever, but it was impossible to explain why. "You are the one," she said quietly, her voice carrying a deep resonance. "You are the one who can bridge the two worlds." I furrowed my brow. "Bridge the two worlds?" I echoed, my voice cracking slightly. "What does that even mean?" "The world you know," she began, her hands gesturing to the dark room around us. "And the one beyond it, the one that exists in the shadows, just out of reach, the one that holds the secrets of life and death, of time and space. It is a world that many fear to enter, but it is a world you must understand." Her words were cryptic, but something in them resonated deep within me, as though they were awakening something buried deep in my subconscious. I had always known there was something more to life, something beyond the mundane existence I had grown accustomed to. But now, standing here, I felt the truth pressing against me, urging me to acknowledge it. "You want me to enter this world?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "To what end? What do you want from me?" The woman's eyes softened even more, the sadness in him deepening. "We need you. You have been chosen, Lila. Your connection to both worlds is stronger than you realize. But you must make a choice now, to remain in the world you know, or to embrace the unknown, to cross the threshold." I felt my heart race, my breath becoming shallow. The weight of her words crashed over me like a wave. "But how do I know what's right? How do I know which world to choose?" She stepped even closer, until she was standing directly in front of me. I could feel her presence enveloping me, like a warm but unnerving embrace. "You must follow your heart, Lila. The answer lies within you. Trust yourself." "Trust myself?" I repeated, the doubt creeping into my voice. "How can I trust myself when I don't even know who I really am?" She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, her touch cool and reassuring. "You are more than you know. You've always known. The truth is not something you find in the world around you. It is something that comes from within. You must remember what you've forgotten." I shook my head, the confusion building inside me. "But I don't remember anything. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. How can I make a choice without knowing what it means?" She gave me a sad smile, her eyes filled with a depth of understanding that made my heart ache. "The choice is not about knowing everything. It's about trust. It's about faith. Faith in yourself, in the world, in the path that lies ahead. You can't wait for the answers to be handed to you. You must take the first step. The room seemed to tilt slightly, as though the very air around us was shifting. I could feel the ground beneath my feet trembling, and the symbols on the walls flickered, their light growing brighter and more intense. It was as though the entire room was alive, responding to her words, to her presence. I felt a stirring inside me, a growing awareness of something I had long ignored. I took a deep breath, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of everything. The woman was right in one thing. I had always known there was something more to life. I had always felt that I was destined for something greater than the ordinary existence I had lived up until now. But now, standing at this crossroads, I had to face the reality of what that might mean. I had to trust myself. But could I? I turned toward the woman, the question on the tip of my tongue. What happens if I choose wrong? What if I can't handle whatever comes next? She looked at me with a mixture of tenderness and resolve. There is no wrong choice, Lila. There is only the path that you choose. And once you choose, you will see the truth unfold before you. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. The air was thick with expectation. The world outside this room forgotten. It was just me, the woman, and the choice that lay ahead. I closed my eyes, taking another deep breath. This was it, the moment that I had been avoiding for so long. I had to make a decision that would change everything. When I opened my eyes again, I knew what I had to do. I choose the unknown, I said, my voice firm with conviction. I will trust myself. I will embrace the truth, whatever it may be. The woman nodded, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Then you have made the right choice. The room began to shift again, the symbols on the walls glowing brighter as the air around us vibrated with energy. I felt a surge of power rush through me, and for the first time, I felt truly alive. Whatever was coming next, I was ready. As the room around me shimmered with a surge of energy, I could feel my body vibrating, as though I were being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. The symbols on the walls were no longer just markings, they were alive, pulsating with an intensity I had never experienced before. The woman in white watched me closely, her expression serene, as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I stood there, at the precipice of a decision that would change everything. The weight of the unknown pressed down on me, but there was a strange sense of peace in my heart. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of the unknown. I was ready to face it. Whatever it was, I was ready. Trust yourself, Lila, the woman whispered, her voice a soft echo in the air. You've already made the choice. Now, all that's left is to walk the path. I nodded, my breath steadying as I took one step forward. Each movement felt deliberate, as though the very fabric of reality was shifting around me. Acknowledging my decision, the air grew thicker, charged with energy, and I felt a pull, gentle but firm, drawing me toward the center of the room. As I walked, the walls seemed to fade, their intricate symbols melting away into darkness, leaving only a single point of light ahead. It was as though I were walking into a tunnel, a passage to something new, something unknown. And yet, the further I walked, the clearer the path became. The uncertainty that had gripped me for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose, as if everything in my life had led to this one moment. I reached the center of the room, where the light converged into a glowing sphere. It hovered before me, radiating warmth and power. I could feel it calling to me, inviting me to step into its embrace. I could see fragments of my life, moments of joy, sorrow, pain, and love, flashing before my eyes, each one a part of the journey that had brought me here. I reached out, my hand trembling, and as my fingers touched the sphere, a flood of visions overwhelmed me. I saw myself as a child, playing in a meadow, carefree and full of wonder. I saw the woman in white, standing beside me, guiding me with her quiet strength. I saw moments from my past, some I had forgotten, others I had tried to bury, all connected by a single thread, the journey of self-discovery. The visions shifted, and I found myself standing on the edge of a vast, dark ocean. The sky above me was filled with swirling clouds, and the wind howled as if trying to push me back. But I stood firm, my feet planted on the edge, knowing that the only way forward was to cross the waters. The woman's voice echoed in my mind once more. Only by crossing the waters will you find the truth. Only by embracing the unknown will you discover who you truly are. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no going back now. I stepped forward, feeling the cold water rush over my feet. The current pulled at me, but I didn't resist. With each step, I felt myself growing stronger, more certain of the path I was walking. The ocean stretched out before me, vast and infinite, but I no longer felt afraid. I had crossed into a new realm, one where the past and future no longer held power over me. I was free, I was whole. As I walked deeper into the water, the landscape around me began to change. The darkness lifted, and the sky cleared, revealing a horizon bathed in golden light. The air smelled fresh, as though I had stepped into a new world, one full of endless possibilities. I could feel the energy of the universe coursing through me, aligning with my every step. And then, as if on cue, the woman in white appeared beside me, her presence no longer distant but intimately close, like a long-lost friend who had always been there. She smiled at me, her eyes filled with pride and understanding. "You have done it," she said softly, her voice a melody that echoed in my soul. "You have embraced the truth." I looked at her, my heart swelling with a sense of peace I had never known. "I understand now," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "The truth was never outside of me. It was always within. I just needed to trust myself to find it." She nodded, her smile widening. "And now that you have, you will see the world in a new light. The journey doesn't end here, Lila, it's only just begun. But now, you are ready. You are ready to walk between the worlds, to embrace the magic that exists in every moment." I felt the truth of her words resonate deep within me. For the first time, I truly understood that life was not a destination but a journey. And it was a journey that I was meant to walk with courage, with faith, and with trust in myself. The choices I had made, the path I had chosen, had led me to this moment, a moment of clarity and peace. The woman in white faded into the light, her form dissolving like mist in the morning sun, but her presence remained, a part of me that I would carry with me always. I was no longer the person I had been before, lost, uncertain, afraid. I was someone new, someone whole. As I stood at the edge of the vast ocean, looking out at the golden horizon, I realized that I had crossed the threshold into a new life. A life where the supernatural and the mundane coexisted, where the impossible was possible, and where every step was a step toward becoming the person I was always meant to be. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, and moments of doubt, but I knew now that I was ready to face them. I was no longer afraid. I had found my truth, and nothing could take that away from me. With a deep breath, I took the first step into the unknown, knowing that whatever came next, I would walk it with an open heart and an unwavering belief in myself. And so, the journey continued.